here with Art and Scott of Mordred.
What's up?
Hello and welcome.
When did Mordred initially form?
1984 or 85, it's still up to debate, but we played our first show in 1985. That's still up to debate too, maybe 86.
No, I got in 86. You guys have been going for at least a year and a half or so before I got in.
No, Mordred's first show was, it was either 85 or 86, February 19th. Our first show was with a band called Bassist in San Francisco.
So I went to that show and it was definitely in 85.
Okay.
A lot of dispute there.
No dispute. Yeah, and I went to high school with the Possessed guys. And that was, we took a field trip out there and I didn't even know who Mordred was then. But it was cool.
How many demo tapes did you do before you actually got a record deal?
One, two, and then the record label that we had finally signed with paid for 2 more.
So how did you get signed to Noise Records at that time, right?
We went down to LA for this concrete metal, I guess you call it convention. And we met with Carl Walterbach, who was the owner of Noise at the time. And we pretty much signed right after that. We just kind of met with him and he was like, yeah, let's do it.
So let's show the first album. Who has it? Right away.
In this order, are we?
Yep, that's it. That's the one.
Fool's Game.
What do you remember from recording and performing those songs? Or even writing those songs?
It was like a very early, you were in our early 20s mostly when we all went in there. It was mostly a party. We went in and partied a lot, and we were also under the microscope of recording for the first time. So there was some stresses there, but it was mostly partying, mostly under the microscope, and then getting barfing drunk, fighting, and then waking up again soon after.
See, it's funny, I remember it very differently than that,
Pretty typical.
But,
Go for it.
Yeah, so we were recording up at this sort of like chicken ranch, and you wouldn't know when you were driving by that it was a recording studio. It looks like a farm, and they'd converted all the barns and exterior buildings into studios. And at the time, Marty Friedman and Jason Becker were the only other people up there recording at that spot. And let's see, there was like horses and all kind of stuff there. I guess I remember drinking one night with that mezcal with the worm, but I remember this guy with the Jimmy Dean sausages for breakfast every morning.
Yeah, we had a per diem of $10 a day, and so we had to budget it. So we had this system of walking to the AM/PM, like 7-Eleven type store, gas station store, and we had like our system for being full all day.
Snack management, it was called?
Yeah.
Snack management? Yes.
When the album came out, how did it do?
I think it did pretty well, actually. We were lucky that right after the record came out, we got a tour with Nuclear Assault, and that was our first big tour. And we just, got in front of people, and it was a lot of fun. First off, and those guys are the best band to go out with as a new band, and having them, kind of showing you the ways and everything. And we played in this town at the Milwaukee Metal Fest.
That's right.
In December, 89.
Yeah.
We learned a lot from touring with them.
And then we took their whole tour, their whole crew with us to Europe, because we finished the tour, and then we went out with Overkill in Europe. And they're like, well, hey, do you have a sound man? We're like, no. So they're like, okay, sound man's coming. And they're like, do you have any roadies? We're like, no. They're like, okay, the road crew's coming. So we ended up bringing, we finished the tour with Nuclear Assault, just took the whole crew with us. That was so much fun.
That was a quick two-week tour of Europe that was really fell into our lap. We were lucky enough to open it. We were with the purpose of opening up the Dynamo Open Air Festival, and that was an opportunity that just came our way, and it exposed us to a lot of people.
Second album, show that and tell us what happened. All right.
In this life.
Big
We
step forward.
expanded upon the sound that we sort of were starting to mess around with on the first record, and we got into, or we were already into a lot of different kind of musical styles, but we started kind of adding in things that we liked and keeping like a foundation of real heavy sounding, very strong drum and bass and like crunch guitars, but we added in a lot of other kind of just sounds, I guess, a lot of different kind of styles.
That was facilitated by adding a DJ. At the time, we were listening to a lot of other anti-establishment music, which at the time was like Public Enemy, Ice-T, NWA. All these bands were this is before hip-hop or rap became a popular music. It was right when it was starting to break in America. And we were digging, like, they were saying the same things we were saying, don't trust the man, things like that. And so the new sounds, we integrated into Mordred's sound with the help of DJ Paz, who was in a band playing a lot at the same time that we were. He was in a band called MC and the Monster, but when that band started to implode, we just made our move on him. He said, yeah, let's do it. And he came in for our first record where he was a guest DJ, and then on this record he was a full-fledged member.
Yes.
This is the second record.
How did your fan base react to such a big change?
Well, it wasn't a huge change because we sort of started out on our first record having elements of that in our sound. So people weren't very shocked about it, but it was mostly good, but not everybody loves it. It's not everyone's cup of tea. But we really loved playing those songs. We still love playing those songs. So it was, it was good for us. We needed to have some kind of just, difference in, we needed to set ourselves apart a little bit. And it was before there was any like Limp Bizkit or any, there was no thought of Kid Rock or any of that kind of stuff. So we just were like, fuck it, let's do it. Let's play what we love and just keep it really fucking heavy.
What kind of promotion was Noise Records giving you at that time?
At that time it was pretty good. They had a New York office and a European office, and they were sort of at the top of their game when they had, like, Creator was doing very well, and a bunch of their other acts were doing very well too. We were kind of left of center, so they, Carl, to his, to his credit, he saw that there could be something heading, that would be good for us in the future, past the more traditional thrash movements, and in the end, we ended up sort of being seen as the starting point for a lot of those later bands that were more experimental.
What happened next?
What happened next? We recorded an EP called Vision.
Yes.
Another, taking our experimentation even further.
Yeah, our EPs, we tend to get a little more experimental than even the LPs and stuff. So we just kind of wrote some songs that we liked and put them out. And we were planning on doing a record right away after that, and it just didn't happen. And then the next record after that, full length, I wasn't even on it.
What happened? Why did you leave the band?
I didn't leave the band. They booted
The
me
band
out.
left you?
That's all a matter of contention.
They sat me down in a room and booted me out.
That's how Scott remembered it. We remembered it more. I remember it more like I don't know if it was our management or if it was hearsay within the band, but the ultimatum came. Either we do we do such and such one way according to what we were told as the band without Scott, or basically we were told if we didn't play more toward what Scott wanted, then we were then he was going to leave the band. So when you have an ultimatum, the only thing to do is just cut it off. So that's the way it was to us. But Scott doesn't remember making an ultimatum.
Nah.
I believe Scott. It could have been.
We were writing some shitty songs at that moment, though, and I kind of took the blame for some of the shitty songs. And then they moved on, made a record. I moved on, did my thing, and then
This is the record.
This is the record, all right?
and then 20 years later, I'm back.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Hey, they turned the lights on us.
I wonder why. Anyways, we'll go in the dark. So this album happened.
Yes, it's very darkly lit for the dark time, the next room. So when Scott was out, we auditioned a bunch of singers locally, and one guy stood out. His name was Paul Kimball, really good guy. He sounded different from Scott, and you mentioned our crowd. In the early times, there was another singer before Scott, before we made the next room, and he was very much different from Scott as well. So each one of the singers that have been in Mordred sort of took the reins in terms of being their own thing with Mordred. Scott is, of course, in the bulk of our glory days, so obviously he leaves the biggest mark. But yeah, we made this record. We did a bunch of local shows, no tours. Basically, this is at the time when Noise was starting to fall apart and not really, they didn't back the tour that we were supposed to support this with. And so at that point, we disbanded after making this record.
How did the fans react to a new voice of Mordred? I mean, people were used to Scott. It was kind of difficult.
Mixed reviews. In retrospect, now what I hear, people hated it. Some people didn't like it, and a lot of people did like it. But apparently not enough to make a big difference once we were, first got to have our tour pulled. Then it was moot how many people liked it after we broke up to get back at Carl.
Yeah. Well, how did the band get back together then?
Well, back in 2000, we got back together and did
2014.
couple of shows back in 2000.
Oh, 2000.
We got back together and did a few shows with Gannon on drums. I think we maybe play like 3 or 4 then. We were actually getting back together to play the Chuck Billy cancer benefit, but by the time we were able to play, they had already had all the bands on the bill and stuff. So
I just need to get into this cooler real quick. Thank you.
So that's kind of what happened. And then we, after that, Danny, our guitar player, was living in New York at that time, and he would come out every so often, and we would get together and play some shows. We got Jeff Gomes to come play drums with us, from Merv and from Fungo Mungo, and he's like monster drummer from around town and good close friend of mine. So we got him in there, and then it's just been full steam ahead once we got Jeff in there. We got an opportunity to do a tour in 2014, and like a UK tour, and that really kind of got us going again.
That's why I really think that we were considered back together. Like the earlier, the 2000, 2007 sort of reunion shows were mostly benefits to benefit people. We were still friends, obviously.
When Curtis Grant passed away, we played a benefit for his widow and everything. And so, I guess you're right. It was, we were doing a series of benefits.
2014 was really when we were willed back into existence through crowdfunding.
Yeah, that's what happened. We had a band called Furion and a couple other individuals, Matt Denny, over in UK, and they had seen us post something on the Facebook where we were just playing together in a room, and they're like, well, how could we get you to do just that over here? And we're like, buy us some plane tickets, set it up. And they're like, we'll do better than that. We're gonna get you on tour with Furion. And unfortunately, the singer in Furion had some kind of a throat nodule kind of issue, so they weren't able to go out with us. So last minute, we got another band go out with us, and it really did well. People received it well. The shows were good, and so we ended up coming over the next year, doing it again, and playing the Bloodstock Festival. And I guess that's the last tour we did. That brings us up to 2022.
Started new music.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so it took us a long time to write. We wrote probably 30 songs to get the 12 that you hear on the EP and the record. But after not writing together and having Danny, one of our main writers, living in New York, it made it a little difficult to get them done in any kind of timely fashion. But since we didn't have anybody sweating us to get this done quick, we took our time, we did it, and just, I'm real proud of the new stuff, to be honest,
So in 2019, we released this EP called Volition.
Yeah.
We recorded a video for it and put it out called Not For You. It was pretty
And
well
then
received.
we did another video too, didn't we?
For this Love of Money also, yes. And we also included the Baroness, which we had released prior to that. And the YouTube people, over time, we got quite a few watches on it. And then shortly afterwards, we released
The album.
the full-length album.
How are people responding to the new music after so many years?
I think that I've heard only really good things with the reviews, and then people who have not
shocked.
really known who we were or heard us before, and this is the first thing they heard, and they like this, so it makes them kind of look at some of the older stuff. But I'm, like I said, I'm real proud of it.
Absolutely. We were actually pretty surprised that a lot of traditionalists still really liked Mordred. I've yet to see anybody committing to say it's a shitty record, in any kind of review. I'd love to see it, because I love reading shitty reviews. And every time we play, we seem to please the audience, so far so good.
What's
Yeah.
next?
Well, we're going to play Hellfest in June in France. And we got a couple of local shows and stuff in between now and then, but basically that, and then we're possibly gonna do a tour the end of July and all the way through to the beginning of September, so a 6-week tour. But it's kind of up in the air, so we're not sure if it's gonna happen or not, but if it does, then we're just going full bore into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we'll pick up some more tours after the Hellfest. Hellfest contacted us, and we were really surprised to have been invited after all these years and only putting out one record. They chose to fly us out there, and yeah, it's going to be fun stuff.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.